Today we got Coach McAdams with us from Pacific Lutheran University. Um, Coach McAdams, kind of if you wouldn't mind, give a little bit of background about yourself, kind of how you ended up at Pacific Lutheran.
So I grew up in a smallish town in the panhandle of Texas. I'm the son of a middle school football, basketball, track coach, and his brothers and just kind of all my aunts and uncles were either teachers, coaches, nurses. But I just grew up playing sports. Older brother, one of two, or just him and myself. And so sports was just always a prominent in our lives, and I was around coaches, so I was always kind of hearing about sports from two different lenses, the player and the coach. From there, my background took me to, through high school in a town called Plainview, Texas, and then my best opportunity to play college sports was at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. So it's about 6.5, 7 hours south of Plainview. Had some family living in San Antonio. And then, from there, 4 years playing under Steve Moore, who's on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot this year, built a phenomenal program, and I got to see him as an organizational leader from the player perspective, and then I got the opportunity to coach with him later. So I knew going into college I wanted to teach and coach, and so my senior year, I just started putting out feelers, trying to build a network and ask as many good questions as I could. And I got an opportunity to be a on-field coaching a graduate assistant at the University of Redlands under Mike Maynard. And Mike had still at Redlands, has been there for going on 30 years, I think. And, so he and Steve Moore knew each other. So that was, having a little bit of a connection there. So I was at Redlands for 2 years, then got the opportunity to go back to Trinity and coach with my coach that I played for. And then from there, a Redlands assistant got the head job at the University of Puget Sound, applied for that defensive coordinator job, and that was my first coordinator opportunity. And so I was with Jeff Thomas at Puget Sound for 3 years. And then life took us back to San Antonio. And so was at Trinity for Steve Moore's last year, and then was there for 4 years when Jeremy Irvin took over at Trinity. And Jeremy was a senior my freshman year at Trinity, so I'd known him since 2002. Had the opportunity to see him lead, phenomenal captain, great athlete, went on and played 9 years in the NFL, and then got into D3 coaching as soon as his time in the NFL was up. So fortunate to coach with and for him before getting this opportunity at PLU. And so I had played against or coached against PLU for 6 of the previous 8 years before getting the opportunity to be the head coach here. So 3 when I was at Puget Sound, and 3 of those years was Trinity playing PLU. So knew about the program, knew about the history, and when the opportunity presented itself, jumped on it. So I had coached in the area, coached in the league, coached on the West Coast, recruited the West Coast, multiple times. So it was a good fit, good opportunity.
Now you mentioned there you lived in San Antonio and coached and played ball there. What are the biggest adjustments you had to make from moving across the country to Washington, and what were the biggest differences you saw from San Antonio to Tacoma?
There's actually, and maybe this is just my optimistic outlook, but there's a lot of similarities. San Antonio is kind of a part of that San Antonio-Austin metroplex, and Tacoma is kind of a part of that, Seattle-Tacoma metroplex. So there's a definite separation in the two cities, but it's all connected and a big network. One thing I love about the Northwest that is similar to what you'll find in Texas is just kind of down to earth, communities. I have some friends that went on to live in the Northeast, and pace of living's pretty fast, in a city like New York. But not to say Seattle's obviously not a fast-paced city. But yeah, I guess just the biggest adjustments was, getting to know a new area. But yeah, no, Tacoma is an awesome city. What's it called? But yeah, I mean, just kind of the time zone is probably the biggest difference.
All right, Coach. I noticed when kind of going through your staff and who you hired, a lot of your coaches had high school experience. Was that a priority for you? Was that on purpose? If so, why?
Yes and no. I think it was more of an added benefit of the best coaches that I could bring on. At the Division III level, staff structures are going to vary, institution to institution, and so I've got a certain number of full time, and then a certain number of part time, and so when kind of putting out feelers, and as soon as I got the job, got in the office, the inbox started to fill up with resumes, and just taking the time to go through those and follow up. I mean, it was a strong, football in Washington is good and getting better, and that's a credit to Washington State high school coaches. So when I had the opportunity to kind of go through those resumes, some of the best applicants were high school coaches from the area, and for being able to make kind of some the staff work, a lot of them are they're teaching during the day and then driving over to coach at PLU, and these are guys that are passionate about football. They're passionate about this age group, right? You've got all these different levels of football, and each age group kind of has their niche, and then there's fundamentals that flow all the way throughout. Like I said, I'm the son of a 30-year middle school football coach, and I believe that if you can teach the fundamentals to a group of seventh graders and keep them engaged and focused, you can coach anybody. And so they're great teachers and great coaches and passionate about the area. So having guys that are from the area, they're passionate about the football in the state of Washington, and and PLU has such a rich tradition and strong history that they want to be a part of that.
Awesome, Coach. You mentioned you're a former DC. How involved do you still stay with your defense, or are you kind of hands off and let your DC do his thing?
Both. So when I first got here, we jumped right into it, and we were about a month or two out of spring ball. So, in terms of going through the process, for me, it was easier to hire an offensive coordinator and coordinate the defense myself. So I did that my first year. But one of the coaches on staff had coordinated defense before, so it was just a matter of time, us getting enough time together for me to us to all get on the same language, understand each other, and so after my first year, I handed over the signal calling of the defense to our assistant or defensive coordinator now, Judd Kime, and so I still stay engaged with it. I'm a position coach on defense, so it's an interesting dynamic. We always talk about, sometimes he'll ask, hey, is this a comment from the head coach, or is this a feedback from the linebacker coach? Because that's the position I coach. So it's a good communication. But yeah, I always wanted to stay connected as a head coach, and especially at the small college level, right? Our staff's not so big that we can delegate every single task. We all have to wear multiple hats, and it's what I love about our profession. So I didn't want to step too far away from coaching a position or coordinating a side of the team. So I'd coordinate special teams once I handed over the defense. But yeah, so I stay very involved with the defense and special teams, and then I peek my head in the offensive room and pepper them with some questions just to make sure that there's no holes in what they're trying to do, and got a phenomenal offensive staff as well. So that's kind of how I delegate and manage kind of the X's and O's.
Awesome, Coach. Now, kind of continue with defense. I mean, what are your priorities or kind of must-haves from your defensive staff every week? Is there specific situations you want to see every week, drills, circuits? I mean, what are this has to get done every week?
I want to see, fundamental circuits, and it doesn't have to be the same one every single week, but 1 week is an emphasis on takeaways. Another emphasis is on tackling. Some of those things are going to be ingrained in individual drills, right? Tackling every day is a priority. At least working on the technique, not necessarily going live. But in terms of kind of structuring the week, our first real practice day is a Tuesday, and on Tuesday I want to see a strong foundation in the fundamental, game plan, the base game plan. So I want to see, what we're doing to stop, their top 5 run, their top 5 pass. On base downs on a Wednesday is when we kind of ramp it up, and it's going to be more physical. So on Wednesday, we're going to get into goal line, third down, so short yardage, and red zone. And then on Thursday is kind of we call it trick play Thursday. So it's, just about every single play they've seen is on Thursday. It's something they saw earlier that week. And with the exception of a couple of trick plays, and the goal is that Thursdays are smooth, right? You're starting to really iron out the wrinkles, and then Friday, a walkthrough should be flawless. But yeah, that's kind of our, structure in the week of practice. Yeah.
All right, Coach. And then kind of a question I've started asking a lot of coaches is what have you kind of focused this off season studying and learning to help improve your program, either on or off or both?
When we went to distance learning as an institution, I tried to really ramp up our communication and connection. And so, as a head coach, I've been studying Generation Z. I've been studying, how these kids think, kind of all of the factors that go into their lives that I don't see and potentially, aren't aware of. So, how to connect, how to teach most effectively, with this group. And, but I know my offensive and defensive staffs have been meeting together, reviewing film, whether it's our film from last year or film of, other schools or football teams doing stuff that we know we want to do. And is there a way to incorporate that? Does that fit with what we're looking for? So, probably a mix of X's and O's, culture stuff. We were doing our spring practices were all just like this online on video conference calls. Just because we didn't get the chance to get into spring practices on the field before everything got shut down. So, after a couple of weeks of that, it gets kind of monotonous. And so we started bringing in, speakers, just coaches in our network. When Judd, our defense coordinator, was at Cal Lutheran, Dave Aranda was one of the young coaches on that staff. And now he's the head coach at Baylor. And Coach Aranda took about 45 minutes and dropped in and just shared some philosophy stuff, with our defense. We had a local football legend, Dane Looker, dropped in and shared some of his wisdom and experience with our receiving core. So different things like that to just kind of broaden the perspective and experience of our guys. And but yeah, it's been very focused on how can we get better through this whole COVID thing, without overwhelming kids, because the reality is some of them, or a lot of them, were not ready for to be kind of thrown out on their own. They had these systems in place, they had these support systems on campus and within the program, and then all of a sudden they're not on campus, and the expectations are still the same. So I think it highlighted a lot of inadequacies, a lot of flaws, right? And I think it was, Fedora, when he was at North Carolina, talked about in his program, hey, we want to build a program where there's nowhere to hide. And, I think this pandemic, shone a light on some flaws that were hidden, within organizations, within individuals, and so it's been good to bring those to light and start talking about them and how we can improve. So as a staff, we've been staying connected on a weekly basis, and finding different ways to grow and improve. For us in recruiting, we'd normally have a single junior day, in May, where we had maybe 40 kids on campus, and instead we've gone to virtual junior days. So it's about a 2-hour webinar, and we're probably going to reach over 200 kids doing that. So, and then that's one of those things you go, man, why weren't we doing this beforehand? And something that we'll definitely continue to do in years to come.
Awesome, Coach. And then kind of before we go, do you have any final thoughts on anything you want to hit on, anything we talked about or weren't able to talk about that's kind of on your mind?
No, I just commend you for kind of stepping up and not necessarily filling a void, but filling the World Wide Web with quality content, and free content, around our profession. So, we talk about servant leadership, in our program, and I'm sure this has been a tremendous growth opportunity for you. But yeah, I think it's a great service to the profession of just trying to connect and mine out quality content, man.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. Coach, I wish you and your family nothing but safety and health, and luck this season.
Hey, thanks, man. Same to you.
Thank you, Coach.